What is up, guys? You're tuning into this Okiru podcast. I'm your co-host, Jasper, and we thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure to follow us on our socials at okiru.apparel on Instagram, Okiru on Facebook, Okiru on YouTube, and also Okiru on major platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you enjoy.
Okiru.
Alrighty, boys. Are we ready for this? We got Richard back in the house, and this time he's in person podcast,
in the flesh, man.
In the flesh. How's it feel like to be in the podcast setting now? Before we were doing Zoom podcasts, what's the difference now? What are you feeling?
Man, I feel like a huge amount of energy coming in. Not only that, mate, just want to say congratulations and really happy.
Wasn't expecting that. Thanks, appreciate
I never got the chance to say it in person, so what I can do is I can do. But all I can say is, man, like life has changed so much over the 2 years that we've actually lived in this world, and it's just like looking back in time, it's like what have we really missed out on, and what have we actually done in those 2 years that's gone by. So being here right now, I'm just like wowed out, and I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to feel, but I'm just like overwhelmed. Everything feels so good right now. It's a good overwhelming, by the way. So
nice.
It's a pleasure to have me. Thank you, boys.
What's that feeling of good overwhelming? Like, can you describe that for us?
Whoa.
Hey man, I know you like to talk. Don't be shy now.
Look, I don't know. It's like I think one thing I had to do with myself was to just put myself in pause mode. So the past 2 years was just like learning and growing, right? And learning and growing, one or two things I took up was reflecting. In those reflections, I realized I think too much. That was a problem. I think I even mentioned it to you at one point, Jasper. A few times, not just one, a lot of times. So it's like my reflections kind of like reflect back onto me on what it is that I do and what it is that I hear from other people and what it is the feedbacks they give me. So having to be in a position where I'm reflecting and seeing myself actually act the way I do. What am I thinking about? Like, if I'm thinking about something, am I doing something towards it? If I'm doing something, am I doing something to benefit not just myself, but other people too? So it's like, my thoughts kind of like had to align with what it is that I do on a daily basis. And I saw so much within people that I didn't see within myself. So I had to kind of step back, and I saw like, if I can create a relationship with people, I should create a relationship with myself. So what I started doing over time is developing that grit that we all speak of. Also, what it is that we're trying to build, right? Because that comes over time. That's with experience, and that comes with relationship as well. In your experience that you would have noticed from your early ages, you had to do certain things in order to make yourself known. Also, you felt like you had to make yourself known.
Okay.
So building relationships is like one thing that I had to step back from and actually had to do. When I say step back from, it's like, I never actually did it, but I thought I was doing it. So I had to take a side step, and I'm like, oh, okay, I was doing it all wrong. I've been making so many mistakes, and I thought I was doing the right thing, quote unquote. And then seeing myself now and, with those reflections that I've been having, how much relationship have I actually had with myself? How much relationship have I actually given others that took advantage of, that I never benefited anything from? So the 2 years that's actually gone by, that's one thing I would have said I had to work on. That's one thing I worked on. Now, connecting with people, to me, I feel like it's easy, but it's not, because you still have those doubts like, is this person going to like me? Am I going to say the right thing? So like, it's like a new norm that you have to kind of adjust to.
I want to go back. What did you mean by when you were younger you had to make yourself known? What do you mean?
Okay. So this is interesting, right? Okay. So when you're young, most of the time you're actually dependent on your elders, like your parents, your older siblings, your friends, your teachers, so and so. Now with that, because when you're with your parents, you see how they act when they're together, how they treat you. Right. So you're in the same rooms, like, oh, hey, Jasper, it's like, I want to cook something. What do you want to eat? And things like that. Now, because Jasper tells his parents what it is he wants to eat, he's going to get attached to it, that they're going to always cook for me. Until that one day comes, like, oh, Jasper, I want to cook. You want to help me? He's going to be excited because he knows they're going to cook his favorite meal, right? So that's a relationship that just formed. And until the point where his mom asked him if he wants to cook with her, he's probably like, oh yeah, you know, my mom loves me. My mom actually does things for me. Now, in return of that, you would also do things for your mom. Until that time, your mom doesn't do anything for you. Then you also start, acting on your own, but you make mistakes. And when your mom, like when your parents get involved with you making mistakes, you get upset because they've always supported you. That's what you've always seen, right?
That's what you've always known.
That's right. So in the early days, that's where most of the things actually happen, where you miss out on. Even like right now, there are things that you probably did this morning throughout the day that you probably didn't pay attention to that could have actually ruined a relationship that you could have with someone. Could be like a coworker, could be like a stranger that you just randomly meet on the street. Right. So how you see yourself will actually reflect off other people. Not so much what other people see of you that should reflect off them onto you. Right.
It's a lot of introspective. You have to be very, because you don't know what you're giving off to other people. Because that is a tough one to navigate, right?
That's a tough one to navigate.
I told you, boys, my mind goes wild.
I know, but like I feel like there's a lot of unpack there just from the beginning. You talk about reflection. You talk about growing up as a kid, like, and you yourself, you're a dad now. So how are you using the reflections and implementing them with your child? I know there's, that French style of parenting. I forgot what it's called. It starts with M.
Sorry, I forgot it too. I'm sorry, but I know the one you're talking about. I know the exact one you're talking about.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Like whenever people say, I'm like, but it's that style of parenting where you, instead of doing things for your child, you let them do it for themselves and do it through failing, right? Pretty much like what you were talking about, how if your parents do things for you, you get used to that and have that expectation all the time that when those events happen, you don't have to do anything, right? Because you're so used to what's been done for you that it's unknown how you do it yourself. Whereas I think this style of parenting, I forgot what it's called.
It's all right. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just at the tip of my tongue. But yeah, if you guys research that, it's French style parenting, right? And it's really influencing the child through that failing and through that process of learning. Like when I was talking about it with my partner, she was telling me about an example with a mom who she has a 3-year-old, but the 3-year-old already knows how to cook his own meal, right? Yeah, he knows how to cook his own eggs and stuff.
That's incredible.
And it's all that process of letting them do it, and then tasting it and be like, oh, what's wrong with the flavor? And then you learn through experience.
Just adjusting, right?
Learn through and adjusting and adapting through our experiences. And pretty much what we're taught at an adult age and never at a younger age, from what my experiences are now, is you get spoon-fed, you get done everything for you by your parents, as opposed to now when you're older, they're like, learn through experience, right? And it's so hard to transition because majority of your life, you've learned this one way of living. When you have to learn something else to readjust to that period, it takes time.
It takes time.
Right? Like with anything, say you've been through an experience for like 5 years, or you've worked in some place for X amount of years, and you move to a different role, you're not going to get to that role immediately. You're not going to learn that lifestyle, that work style immediately, because you've got a lot of unlearning to do while a lot of learning to do. So, like pretty much like relationships, right? When you have an old relationship, you have to learn and unlearn new things. When you get into a new relationship, you can't bring the old baggage into this new place, right? But that's where you learn, that's where you unlearn. It's through the experiences.
Correct.
But in saying that, like, continue with that question, like, through your reflections about what you've found, how are you implementing them with your son?
Well, with my son, one thing he actually started doing on his own was he wanted to actually go to the toilet on his own. Now, don't mind kids, like they hear things, so they want to repeat it. When you say toilet, he would say toy. So that's the closest thing he gets to it. But if you hear it multiple times, you understand it, it makes it easy for him, because then you can actually repeat it multiple times that he understands, that he will say toilet properly, right? So now he's saying toy, which is close enough to toilet. Again, It's that repetitiveness that you're actually doing and you're implementing it onto him. Now with that, what I also notice is that our relationship hasn't been as good, if I was to say. And the only reason why I'm saying this is, look, well, we go to work, we work 8 hours a day. Sometimes, actually, when you look at it, you work longer than 8 hours. You work like 10 hours a day. You know, in the morning you have to get ready. You wake up before they do. By the time we get to work, it's like what, 2 hours or an hour already. And then by the time you finish work, it's like what, you know, like 3 p.m. Or if you finish at 5, maybe 4 p.m. And you'd be like wondering, like, what has my son done all day? What have I missed out on teaching him? So most times when I get home, like, I hear that he's kind of misbehaved. So what I realize is the mommy saying this, I'm not like actually I'm not going against what it is that moms do for their child. Bro, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I love my mom more than I love my dad. Don't mind me saying that, I'm sorry, but it's true. So what I notice is he actually mistreats his mom, and he actually treats me with a little bit more of respect. He respects his mom, but because she's actually like always there with him, it's like he abuses that love that she gives him, right? So it's like when it's my turn and I just look like, you know, just put my head up like this, you see him look down and then he'll try to look up again, trying to be cheeky, you know? And it's like, you try so hard not to like, you know, like, oh, he's so cute, but you can't help it. You do it from the inside, but you just don't, you try not to show it because it's like, he needs to learn a lesson, right? So the way I do it is I try to take a step back from my emotions. I detach myself from it. If he's done something wrong, fair enough, he's done something wrong. Well, we've all, even as adults, we always do things wrong. We just, when we put our attention to it, it's like, oh, take a step back. With this one, I feel like it's kind of easy because how I look at it, he's a reflection of me. But I don't want him to go through what it is that I went through, right? If I can give him a better life, I would. So when I hear that he misbehaves, the first thing I do is I take him into the room. Everybody comes and like you see heads poking through the door, and I'm like, you know, because it's like, hey, I'm having a private time, you know. It's like I just want to give him the time that he needs with me and him. I need him to understand a little bit of things from me. And what I do is like I just tell him like, so how was your day? And when I say before, he does speak, but then his words are not there yet. He understands me. So when I tell him like, oh, so how was your day? Like I ask him a question, how was your day? He says, oh, good. So what did you do? You hear him sometimes like, shopping, right? Park, toy. So that means they went and bought toys from like, you know, shops. And I'm like, oh, so did you have fun? Yes. I'm like, okay. How was your behavior today? And hear him sometimes like, and I'll be like, behavior. So were you bad? Were you good? Were you naughty? Were you making mommy happy? And you hear mommy happy, or mommy say naughty. And I'm just like, what did you do? He's like, I picked this up and boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, no, man, what were you hitting? What did you do? So I let that conversation go. And at one point he mentioned that he went over to one of his family friends' house. Now, this kind of disappointed me because the way he behaved is, he said that kid hit him, right? And I was just like, what did you do? And he said he grabbed a toy and boom, boom, boom. I'm like, why you do that? And he's like, you know, boom, boom, me. And I'm like, it's all right, but, you know, sometimes it's always good to, you know, you being the smarter guy and just walk away. Go to mommy, you know, and just tell mommy what happened, and that's it. And you hear him, it's like, okay. Literally, he loves that word. I'm not going to lie, at times even at work, I use this myself. It's like, you get so used to what it is they say, you just, I can't detach myself from this. I love it. Yeah, so, you know, it's like just having that interaction with them, and letting them know that you understand where they're coming from. So through my reflections and what it is that I see myself, like where I see myself at right now with my son, is I want to make sure that even though I never had that type of interaction with my own father, because I really haven't, like I feel like I haven't, even though I do, I feel like because we never built that relationship, it hasn't gone to that point where what it is that he tells me, like actually gave me what it is that I have now. You know, and for some reason, I have to say for some reason, I feel like I really don't know him. You know, it's been some time now. It's been a long time, I should say. But all I know is my mom, bro. Yeah. So, you know, it's like when my son I'm looking into actually getting him into childcare. And it's not so much because I want him to, go to school, but the fact that I want, like, not just like to learn and all, but like I want him to actually be with other kids, interact with them, like form relationships, right? Form relationships, just like, know what it is that, what's actually out there for him. And other than that, what other kids are doing that he can also do, but better, right? So with that, it's been some thought. And at times, like in the morning, like this is on Saturdays and Sundays where I don't have work, he'll wake up earlier before me, but most times he doesn't realize it's my head is up. When he wakes up, my head is up. So I look over and you see him like, trying to open the door. So the door is about this high and he's about yay high. Oh, no, yay high. And when he reaches, the knob sometimes is slippery because when your hands are sweaty. So he misses trying to grab the door. Yeah. And you hear me like, and then he come over, daddy, outside. Yeah. So he calls his grandpa poo-poo and he calls his grandma pee-pee. So he say, oh, daddy, pee-pee, outside. And I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah. So I open the door for him, he goes out. And then he comes back into the room because he likes that relationship between his father and his mother, right? You will always love your mother and father more than you love other mothers and fathers. So what he does is he comes into the room and he says he wants to watch his iPad. So like, those educational programs they have on, YouTube. So one morning I'm like to him, you want to go to school? He's like, yeah. And then I'm like, you want to read book? Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, so go grab your book. I'll get your bag. And we'll go to school. And then he goes and grabs it and, I'll put it in his bag. I'm like, where's your bottle? He's like, over there. I grab it off his hand, put it in the bag, put it on him properly. And then you hear him when he goes outside, it's like, pee, that's his grandma. I'm going to school. Cool. Cool. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I let him go. And after that, like, it kind of turned into a routine where he wakes up every Saturday and says he wants to go to school. And I'm like, no, you go to school every Monday to Friday. Yeah. And then, just like letting him know a little bit of this and that. And like, just that relationship to me, I felt like I had to increase it because I felt like I was only doing that like through Saturday and Sunday mainly because Monday to Friday, most times I'll be trying to contact my family. My family's overseas, right? So I'll be trying to contact them like after work hours because the timing difference are also when they wake up, that's when I'm almost about to go to sleep. So it's like, it was difficult for me to actually interact with my family here and my family over there. So what I had to do was like, timing and all. So forming two relationships at once can be difficult, but if you can manage one, the other one will be easy. So this one was the one I had to get rid of. Meaning like I had to make everything seem like it was going smoothly. And then the other one, that was another one I had to work on. But seeing my relationship with my family and having to hear the lessons that my mom teach me, like my reflection just like brought back so many memories that I've had that was bad. Like I came to Australia at the end of 2006, so late November 2006. And like first landing in Australia is like, wow, it's like a new country. Coming here the whole way through, I felt like I never slept in the plane because like so much thoughts were rushing in. And this is where I felt like most of my thoughts started to come in from. I started interrogating myself. I started investigating in who I was. I started asking questions like, am I that? Am I this? And then also my problem was I started listening to what other people were saying, which left me out of forming a relationship with myself from within. So, living with my uncle and auntie, my cousins were there, I will be seeing them have that fun time with their mom and dad. I never had that. And that's what it is I'm trying to instill back into what it is I have now with my son and my partner. So, living with my uncle and my auntie and my cousins, like I saw so much that they were doing as a family that I felt like I never had. Because, that long ride coming from, Africa to Australia, I never really had the experience of being in a room where all my siblings were, my mum and dad were. If my mum was there, my dad wasn't there. You know what I mean? So it was just like my mum was always telling us what it is that we need to know, what it is that we can do, what it is that we should do. So I feel like most of my blockage came from that thought in the plane where as soon as I landed, I lost touch with myself. And then living in Melbourne, Victoria until 2008 for the majority of the time that I did, I saw many things that I shouldn't have seen as a kid. So I used to go for walks with, with one of my family relatives. So I used to go for walks with him, and he's a lot younger than me, and he was a midget then, but now he's like, and I'm like, bro, you better get back down here, man. So it's like we'll go for walks and we'll go just visiting small parks here and there. And don't mind me saying this, but we'll bump into people who are different color of us. So like whites, for instance. For some reason, we've always loved the Asian. So we felt like we're like, we know the same thing, like we connect to the same things, like, but so bogans, right? So what one person said something to me, and what they did, after they said it, my English wasn't bad because in my country in Uganda, in the capital city Kampala, when I lived with my auntie and her kids, I actually learned how to speak English, right? I only remember this because some vivid memories that you can't get let go of. So living in that place, I learned how to speak English, and that's when I lost touch with most of what it is that I know. I knew how to speak, I think, Luganda, Swahili, Arabic. You see, that's like 4 language already. I don't even know how to speak them anymore. So, not knowing how to speak English, I picked up on a few things that I shouldn't have. And this guy said something racist. But me being young, I didn't know he was being racist until he sent his dog onto me. Oh. Yeah, bro. So his dog came, and my first intention was like, oh shit. We just took off. We climbed up a tree, and you hear him come down, and it's like, it's like, what are you fellas doing here? Like, he's another term, like, what are you B fellas doing here, right? And I'm just like, huh? Like, we're just going for a walk. Our house is not too far from here. And after that day, I realized there were actually 2 different people in the world. Not so much the bad and, the good, but so much as in, you have a perspective, and sometimes you shine your perspective on someone else. You don't let them shine onto you. So...
Well, can I just slow it down a second? Let's get back on track. You're telling us your story. It's a great story. I appreciate you sharing, man. We know you have gone through a lot just from what you've said.
Thank you.
I feel like there's so much to unpack with what you said. So we started talking about the reflection and with your kid, and what you've changed through your growth and relationship. And now you've brought in another, I think a good area to talk about is you've been here for how long now? Over 10 years, right?
Over 10 years.
16,
going to 16.
Years?
Going to 16.
16 years. And when was the last time you saw your family? A while, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
that time, actually, when I first came to Australia, I feel like I haven't seen my family since I was 5 years old.
Yeah. Wow. So there's it all leads back to relationships, man.
It does. So, it really does.
And obviously you've experienced a lot of racial abuse from people.
Sorry to cut you off, but that I kind of put aside, man.
Yeah,
I started looking at that as something that I'm gonna go through regardless. Everybody goes through it, right? It doesn't matter what nationality you are. So as long as you understand and you know who you are and you know who the other person is, you should respect the difference.
For sure.
Yeah.
But let's try to get back on track.
I told you my thoughts are wild.
No, I like that better.
I love it. But just so we can get that focus on relationships.
For sure.
It's really good. We can go back to that reflection and talk about your child, but I think it'll be good for people, especially in this time, right? A lot of people are separated from their families,
right?
And you haven't seen your family in so long, and a lot of people who are in different countries want to go back but don't have the ability to. How are you able to, maintain that relationship with your family, or be able to stay, how do I say this, not so homesick, or how were you able to switch up from that? How were you able to bounce back from those feelings? Because obviously it can take a toll on us when we're separated from our loved ones. So what'd you do for yourself so that you could stay strong and, keep on going?
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here, man.
Man,
I feel like even until now, I actually still do myself, which is I cry because I felt so distant from the people who I actually valued, right? So I feel so lonely that I'll take myself away from the crowd, which that could have been my friends, that could have been my my cousins, my aunties, my uncles. So I take myself away from it because I see what it is that I want to have, but I don't have it because I can't call that mine, you know? So it was until 2012. So I was probably in year 9 or something. I was so distant from everything and everybody that the only thing I felt comfortable with was hearing the negativity come out of people's mouth, that I put myself to try it. So I don't want to get too deep into that one, but I started thinking, what can I do in this position? I want to spend more time speaking to my family. I want to know what it's like to spend time with my brothers. I want to know what it's like to spend time with my sisters, my mother, right? So the only way I could do it, because for a long time I felt like I was restricted from that until I got a phone of my own. I actually got my mom's number as favorite, number 1 favorite. Then I got my oldest brother, my second oldest, third oldest, then my first oldest sister, then my youngest sister. As you can tell, I'm in the middle somewhere, right? So having those intact, right? So my sisters actually don't have phones, so the only way I can communicate with them was through my mom. And I had to kind of break down everything that she's heard over those years, because what happened is she heard so many rumors about me, and I'm saying rumors because they weren't true until I made it true, right? So my uncles will be contacting her, my other cousins will be contacting her, my family will be contacting her. Let me just say family in general. They'll be contacting her and just giving her information, what it is that I'm up to. They never tell her what it is that I'm doing good. So that's where I kind of grew that distance between my family, meaning, this family here, my family over there. Now, being in a position where I had to make the smart choice and also the right choice. Do I disappoint my mother, or do I actually prove these people right? Which is still going to be the same thing. I made a mistake and I did that. But while doing that, I knew I also brought myself closer to her, because now that she knows what it is that I'm doing and what it is that people have been telling her I'm doing aligns, at least I can try get rid of that, just throw that in the rubbish. Now, that was hard for me because all those times she was hearing those things, my relationship with her, I felt like it was across the world, even though we really are across the world, but literally, it was I was scared to talk to her. I didn't even know if she thought of me as her own son, what am I to do? How am I to tell her that I love her without her having to try yell at me? And she's never done that. What are the facts, bro? And I'm just to her, you're too kind. And, in that conversation, she just told me, sometimes when people do things to hurt you, they're not hurting you, they're hurting themselves. But if you allow them to tell you what it is they want to tell you, you can help them in a way if they allow you to. Most times, my family here never allowed them to help me. So I just listen. Now, having to start work finally, like you said before we're getting deep, I want to get to the deep end, which is where I'm at right now. Before I got a job, I wanted to, provide for my family, which I couldn't because I wasn't working. I wasn't earning income, right? So when I got a job straight away, boom, bought myself a phone, I think it was on iPhone 6 at that time. So I was bang, I got 516 or 512 gigabyte. I got that, bro. I'll be contacting her every day, even while I'm at work. I felt guilty for it, but that's what I wanted, That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a position where I can speak to my family, show them love, provide for them. So I was there and I started reflecting, what was I doing wrong before that I'm doing right now? What can I keep doing now that, that will actually show my mom that this is who I've always told her I was? Because in those conversations I had with her, I had to sit down with myself and actually ask me the questions. If those people said that, all those horrible things about you, is that who you really are? Or was it what they wanted you to be? And then I'm like, wow, okay. Why am I telling myself this? I'm like, am I going crazy? And I just like pause and I'm like, okay, sweet. So if I can become a better person, but yet make other people see me for who I tell them I am, why wouldn't I do that? Because this is who I am. That's not who I want, who I am. What they're saying is not who I am, but what I say is who I am. So forming that relationship with my mom and all those positive things, and I'm saying positive for a reason, like she's never said anything bad about another person or another family. Even though they do her wrong, she just expresses herself. And I'm just like to her, how do you do that? Why do you do that? People take advantage of you for no reason. You're happy. And I'm just like, I can't do that. I'll probably try to do something, to get back at them. She's like, sometimes you just have to let it go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, a decision. I've never had to make one on my own until that age, right? So having to go through both that horrible, emotional tragedy that I went through and having my mom tell me all those things are inevitable. I love that word. He's actually the one that passed it on to me. Sorry. I just have to give him a shout out. I felt so connected to her because it's like people do what they want to do. Are you not a person yourself? So if that person can do it, so can you, but you can do it better.
Yeah.
So why don't you do that? And that's when I just took out, and I think that was the 20 seconds of courage or 5 seconds of courage that I took. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even going to care about what it is I hear about what people are saying. I want to have that relationship with my family. So I started talking to my oldest brother. At that time, he was going through something and I spoke to him for some odd reason. I put his value in him. Boom, that was a connection. And then my second oldest, we started talking. Sorry, I hear that he likes to surround himself with females. So I'm like, how can I relate to him? Then I realized I had a few bad experiences with girls too. So I'm like, hey man, this happened to me. And he's like, oh no, wait, me too. That was one, slap on the wrist. And I'm like, oh, I'm forming a relationship with my family. And then my third oldest brother. And I'm like, this guy, he's in academics. So what can I actually go on him with? And also my second oldest brother, he's actually like, sales reps, yeah? Like one of those top ones. That's how I look at him. Yeah. So my third older brother, this guy, he's kind of quiet, So I've been wondering, like, how can I connect with him? I don't really speak to him, I really do. And when I do, it's just like, hey, how you doing? How's your day? And that's it. And it was short. And I felt disappointed by that, That's my own family. How can I not have a relationship with them? How can I not have a good conversation with them? So I'm like, all right, sweet. So he's into academics. He's going to uni right now. All right. So I'm like to him, hey man, I read this book. He's like, oh no way, what book is that? I gave him a little bit of story about it, and I told him, this is probably this is where I see myself in this book, but I'm not there yet. And he's like, oh, yeah, me too. This is actually what I'm doing right now. So it's like we formed that relationship around books. It was weird, but we did it. And I'm like, I can form a relationship with my two older brothers. What can I do with my younger sisters? Now, in between that, I had to actually also step back and ask myself the questions. This is where I'm at. This is what they know I've done. What is it that I really want them to know? So asking those questions, I also ask myself, this is what I've done. This is what people say I've done. This is what I want to do right now. So wanting to do what it is I wanted to do, I kind of stepped out of that shell. It's like a snail, right? Growing that shell into a new one. Yeah, I'm like, that's me right now. I'm gonna just polish it up. And speaking to my sisters, I got really emotional with this one because it's like I'm seeing girls in Australia, or I should say first world countries. They're putting on makeup, they're dressing really nice, they're wearing bikinis. I'm sorry, I don't want to see my sisters in bikinis, but what I'm saying is I'm seeing them in these type outfits. And I've never seen my sisters in it. I felt like I've never seen my sisters happy. And I'm just like, what can I speak to them about? Then one of them actually brought their attention to me that they like fashion. And sorry, bro, but I brought you guys in it. Even though we weren't in it, like you guys were like, part of my life before.
So pretty much what you're saying is to build those connections with your family or with anyone, you're just finding those things that they love.
That also aligns with what it is that you've done or what it is you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what you're trying to explain, right?
Correct.
Just for, shorter, so that we can just get straight to the point, right? So how have you used that? So you talk about making connections with your family. How have you used that with people and building relationships with them? How have you used that with your family here? Right? Obviously, you can use it over there with your family over there because there's no other way to build that connection apart from the conversation, right?
Correct.
So what other things do you do to build those connections and relationships with your family or the people here that you love?
People here that I love.
I just got to say, I really admire the fact that you had that realization that you didn't have that connection with your family back at home, and then you took the steps and courage to contact them like one by one, just like, we know we've been distant, but let's try to make this connection.
Thank you.
That's good. How many of us actually really do that? Because I know I don't.
I know. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about myself when you're talking. I was like having my own self-reflection. I was just like, I sometimes I feel so like I distance myself from my own family, and I'm just like, oh man, like when's the last time I made that one-on-one connection with them, like what you've been doing? So just listening to you, it's really good. Like it's really courageous of you to do that with your family.
Thank you. Like really appreciate that, and I recommend you actually try it. I'm not just try it, actually just do it, because you don't know what you're missing out on. Your family can help you with so much, but looking at it now and how I actually try to create relationship with people, having to connect the dots between my world and their world, sometimes can be hard because most people are arrogant. Or I should just say they're having a bad day. They don't want to actually communicate with you because they don't know you. So how I would try it is just a simple hello. If I get a hello back, continue on, But what it is that I try not to do is I try not to offend that person. But this is one thing, again, I have to say it. I have to point, sorry. I know the other thing is coming back at me. Look, sometimes what it is that you do, the other person will reflect differently. Right. So if you're coming at them and just like saying hello, and then they're like, oh, hi, and you're like, and you're trying to communicate with them, they look at you as annoying, so they yell at you. What do? Do you react? Oh, actually, Jasper, can you use that analogy that you used at one point? The spitting one. Can you use that? Can you use that again? Yeah, the spitting one.
Well, the one if when someone spits on you, it doesn't make you angry. It doesn't make you mad. It makes you wet. Right? It's just how an action is perceived and how it's received, right? And that's like, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine at the gym. So we were talking about relationship stuff, and I was telling him, I'm not saying my relationship with my partner is perfect at all. No, I'm just talking from our experience and what we've learned and what we're doing with ourselves to build the best relationship that we can. And I told him this. I reminded him, like, bro, like, I'm not a perfect man, but I'm just telling you from experience from my relationship. But anyway, to continue with that story, I just told him this. He was having communication, like disconnection with his partner, and the way he was communicating something, it seemed right for him. For him, he sees communication straight to the point, no fluff. But there's a difference between having compassion and boldness, right? You have to have both, right? To be compassionate and be bold at the same time. You would have heard this in the audio too, right?
Yes.
It's being able to communicate it with that boldness, but also understanding where that person's coming from too. So I told him this, that yes, you might be communicating it clearly for you, but obviously for her, she hasn't received it in the clearest way. And the way we communicate things, we all receive it differently. We're not all built the same, right? depending on how we've grown up, depending on what our environment is, depending on what our experiences are, all those variables, we're going to receive information completely different to how I would, you would, anyone else would. It's doing our best to send a communication in a way that can be received as clearly as possible, without offending, without creating those, those ill will, without acting out of emotion. And funnily enough, on that same day, I had communication stuff with my partner, and it was just kind of a like, whoa, it's happening, right? But we were able to communicate what we were feeling. We were able to communicate how it was received and try to find understanding. And I realized that the way I was communicating also, I was actually creating offense, right? But I believed I didn't. I was saying in a way of what I assumed, as opposed to getting all the information. And this is what we found through that, is that through these times when something's communicated and you have an assumption of it and it's not clearly intended that way. She told me, like, why didn't you inquire more? And I was like, I don't know. Because for me, I have to unlearn to not be defensive in communication. If I have an assumption of how someone's feeling, I'll go straight to that and go into the defense and seem like what I'm saying is in offense, right? She received it in offense. So it was that being open enough to tell her and having the humility and vulnerability to say, look, I made that mistake. And also what you said wasn't wrong. It was just how I received it because of what I assumed, right? And it's so hard. Like, as I said in previous podcasts, I try to live by the 4 agreements. What are they? They have impeccable word. Don't assume. Don't take life too seriously, or don't take things too seriously, and always do your best. And obviously, like, sometimes I'm going to fail, right? But we were able to communicate that and to just treat it with grace, as opposed to lashing out and be like, oh, like, why'd you do this? Acting out of emotion. And it's so hard to learn that ability to not act out of emotion, right? Especially as like males, like, we want to just be right all the time. We just want to be like, solve everything immediately. And having that patience. And that's what I told my friend. Like, look, bro, like, from what you're telling me, you react to all the things that's happened, as opposed to taking the time to just sitting through it and letting those emotions happen, and then communicating it, as opposed to just letting those emotions control you. And it's just about identifying when we've attached ourselves to emotions, to feelings. That's when things can become so toxic, right? Because everything is reactive. And it's a freaking long process to unlearn it and learn it, just as everything, right?
Yeah, actually, when you're speaking of like being in that situation, and you try to think about that entire time, because you know it yourself, but when you're in the situation, you don't act on the things that you know, and you're just how do you get through? How do you find it? Like, how do you stop yourself and realize before it's too late that, right.
So when that certain situation happened, like my partner already knew, like, something was up, something happened, and I was just kind of away from the situation. I wasn't present because I was processing everything. And I told her, like, sometimes when something happens, and instead of trying to react like I previously would have done, I need time to process it. Like, I needed to sit in it. And sometimes I can't say anything. Like, I'll just be like, nothing said. And we had that conversation. We kind of communicated it. We understood what happened. And then she asked, like, are you okay? And I told her, like, I'm still feeling this way. I just need time for it to sit, even though we already had, like, discussed everything. But then afterwards, it was just like, all right, I feel good now. It's so hard because it takes a lot of practice in, you know what it is? It's removing ourselves from toxic environments as well. So one thing I know, gaming. One thing I know, when I was a gamer, I was toxic as hell. Like, and you're just so aggressive, like, like, what the heck, like, internet connection, or this guy's so bad, like, my teammates are crap, like, and you start blaming the game because you can't do anything. But you can. It's just about removing yourself. And one thing I realized, when I remove myself from that toxic environment first, and I move to that self-reflection, like what Richard has done, and really dig deep, you know, like really freaking understand who you are. We're not going to fully understand. Like, we're all learning, but it's really just being like, where can I grow? Where can I improve? What is wrong with me? What is creating those toxic environments? Where am I detaching? Where am I creating rifts into people? Right? And then it's, all of us are going to find those things ourselves. Like for me, it was suffering. Like I always tell this in our previous podcast, like really put myself in times where I'm just like hating life. Like I'm going for a run. I hate this. But you just feel so good after it. The outcome is beautiful because you get home and you're like, oh, thank God, I can rest. I can feel all the adrenaline and I can feel everything and I can just think so much clearer, right? And where I'm practicing it now is cold showers in the morning. Well, the past couple of days have been freaking like 13 degrees in the morning. But I'm still jumping into those showers because I said to myself, I need to suffer. I need to humble myself. And then when I get into the shower and like I'm ready to go about my day, and then I start like the day with whenever I'm with my partner and I do the snuggle time, like it's just so much more grateful for it, because you're just like, wow, I get to spend this amount of time and start the day with the person I care about, the person I love, and I get to just like be there in that moment, remove everything, right? Because I've already suffered that hard part. It's not even hard, like, you know, doing cold showers isn't hard at all, but there's that thing in our body that, because we hate it so much, it feels like suffering, you know. And it's I guess to go back to what we're talking about, how to remove yourself and detach yourself from the emotions. Everyone is going to learn differently, but what we can share is our experiences. So for me personally, it was going through those breakdowns and really digging deep in myself, and also reaching out to people who were willing to listen to me, give me support, give me feedback, tell them, oh, hey, this is going on. What can I do? Right? Gain perspective. And then it's also, you have to experience it.
Sorry, lads.
We're back.
Okay, we're back. Just to finish on what we were talking about, I was just saying, like, from my experience, how I was able to detach myself. It was just being reminded by other people. Obviously, like, when you attach yourself to things, you are putting yourself in that place of suffering, but it's not a place of intentional suffering. You're putting that place of dependent suffering, I would say. Is depending on the situation, I will suffer, right? But obviously, what the heck do I know? I'm freaking 26 years old, man, but I'm still on that growth journey. I'm still learning, but this is where I'm at. This is what I've learned. This is what I've learned to experience. This is what I've learned to share. And the biggest thing to get out of the emotion, especially, I'm going to say this in the partner sense, because I feel like this is the place where it is the most necessary, because it's your relationship with your partner, right? The person you love, whoever that may be. That communication of it, and really like trying to get clarity on what you've said and what's been said. And sometimes emotions will come, right? You can't help it. But it's through that growth of things happening how you go stronger. And this is what I was reminding her. Obviously, it probably wasn't sticking at that time. It was just, this is how we grow our relationship. We go through these bumps in the road so that we know where the mistakes and where the things we can grow from. Without those things happening, we're not going to learn. We're just going to let those things fester inside us, and we're just going to brush it under the rug. And eventually that rug is just going to get so big, it will just pop out, and it will just start to slowly get into our relationship. Right? But anyway, I was going to ask a question to you guys, but I think we go into a really good discussion before, like after the toilet break.
No. I'm gonna put him in the shed.
Okay,
and that
yeah,
way
okay,
he's
okay,
not.
okay.
Because he's just right there, and he's like.
So Obi is just singing. So Gerald's just gonna be back. This is another break. Oh my god!
Nah, that was awesome. But for real, what you said about the bridge, it's so true, bro. Because you never really allow the other person to actually express themselves. You want to express yourself, but what you're missing out on is what the other person has to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and there's always going to be, miscommunication in some shape or form, right? It's never going to be a perfect communication. It's just about understanding, like, this is what I also reminded her at understanding, yes, we might have a miscommunication. Maybe times we might not be able to find a solution to what's going on before we go to bed. But just know this, at the end of every day, I'm still going to love you. Like, that's what I put on myself, that I will love you regardless. And it's just being reminded of that what is at the North Star of that relationship. And it's that love, right? You love that person, but obviously it's more than love. For us, like we have that saying, is like, I love you more than love, because it's more than that. It takes a lot more than just love itself.
well, look at it this way: love, you can actually say "I love you," but when you describe it, you can't. Right? So,
Yes, it's an indescribable.
sorry, go on.
Indescribable.
Oh yeah, that's something in that song, right?
Come on, man! You guys getting me my
But anyway, as I was alluding to, is after the toilet break, we started having another conversation, an interesting conversation about, we had this question we had on our social media, and it was, can you only grow through suffering? And it's always stuck. It always comes back in our podcast, man.
It does.
I want to understand from the person's perspective, other people's perspective, like why you can't only grow like through suffering, right? I'm trying to understand it, because majority of the successful people that I know, majority of the successful people that you see on social media have grown through the greatest suffering. So it mind boggles me how, and you know what? I don't know the whole world. Maybe there are people who have been successful without facing suffering. We don't know that, because honestly, we see, like I heard this in another audio, is most of the time we're seeing people at their page 100 of their book. We didn't see the page 1. We didn't see the page 10. We see the highlight reel, right? Because that's what matters. That's what we show everyone. So going back to that, it's, what was that question you asked? Like nurture versus nurturing.
Oh yeah. So to that question, if you can grow only through suffering, I was trying to think of the other perspective of people saying that you can grow without suffering, and with nurture, which is like people like taking care of you, or like, I guess, telling you what to do and stuff, whether that's the perspective that they're seeing it from, that they can grow through like a mentorship, not through suffering, but like through a mentorship.
Guidance.
Yeah,
guidance. Yeah. Because I'm trying to understand because for me as well is I believe you can only grow through suffering, because that's where you really truly learn and you can grow.
So obviously, like, it's hard for us to really think about, because we kind of have that bias already, right? But I guess we can have that discussion, and eventually maybe we have someone who believes that on the podcast, or have a discussion somewhere else about it. But I guess we can just kind of do the hypothetical, then just theories on what could happen, right? But in saying that, like what you were talking about, that nurturing is that guidance, that mentorship, but it's what I was telling you before is, yeah, they might guide you and show you the ropes and the path, but it's not like they're backing you throughout the whole journey, right? It's like, hey, something happens and you're struggling and you go through that suffering. It's those people you can turn to, the support groups, your support team, that your support network that you can turn to and be like, hey, I'm going through this, I'm suffering, I'm struggling maybe, and I'm going through challenges. Can you give me some perspective? I think that's why I feel like nurturing is it's not babying anyone through anything. It's that, hey, like, I'm here for you to, in whatever place I can be, but I'm not gonna hold your hand. I'm not gonna do everything for you. It's that I'll give you the push when you need to. I'll give you the support when you need to. It's just understanding that I'll be there for you, but you have to eventually do it yourself. That's the way I see it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because it can only... Oh, no, you go.
Well, you're not really going to feel that fulfillment that you're after, is it?
Right.
If they do it for you.
Exactly.
You don't really know how to do it again if it happens. And sorry, just to top up what it is that you're talking about, mentorship is like, it's like when you ask for guidance, right? Normally those people actually had experience there. So they can guide you, right? But also, if it's a mentorship group, as you put it, it's actually a lot easier because there will be so many people with so many experiences. One of them will relate to you. Now that person can help you. If they can't if they can't in any shape or form, because you're actually learning about yourself in this area, now you know that you can actually pass this on to somebody else later down the track.
Yeah.
So go on. Sorry to jump in like that.
Oh no, yeah. So, what was I gonna say? I can't remember. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot.
But it's that the way I see it, right? It's why I said before is, imagine you go majority of your life, or you go through a long period of time where you're just constantly getting success without success. It's when that when those tough struggles come, how are you gonna know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Because we've seen it. We've heard stories of people in those journeys who just get at it and just get massive success from the get-go, and then what happens is they rise up so fast, but the harder they fall. Because they've had so much success, when that failure happens, they don't know what to do. Right? That's why I believe that going through the sufferings, the failures, it's so necessary. It's part of that journey, right? I think it was John Maxwell who said it, is the successful people have failed the most.
Yes.
They've had the most failures out of all of us. They've gone through all the majority of the experiences that we're going through. Right, and that's why I believe it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't, because when something's always so good, and then just one bad thing happens, and it could be the biggest bad thing, you don't have the fortitude, the grit. You don't have that. You don't have those things because you develop those through suffering, through tearing the muscle, through breaking you down. That's why I believe when I had that biggest breakdown I've ever had, I got stronger through it. That's why I believe that to get through a breakthrough, you need to go through those breakdowns. You need to 100% go through hard shit, man.
You do. Plasticity, man. That's what it is. Plasticity. You build your muscles.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the stronger you're getting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Especially at those early stages, it's when you keep continuing to fail, you're building up that foundation as well.
Right.
Compared to those who rise really quickly and then they fail at the very top. Yeah. There's no foundation to fall on. They're just like, oh, what am I gonna do?
Exactly.
I don't know. And then from there, you just like keep collapsing because you go into that loop of
yeah. Exactly right. And it's not like we're saying, oh, yeah, just because you're failing so much, you're gonna succeed. No, it's not that. It's a lot of other stuff that goes on, right? It's just because I fail like 100 times, yeah, I'll eventually get it. Like if it becomes a pattern, there's something wrong somewhere else, and you just have to figure that out. And it's in that process of learning and process of having those support networks, it's a lot of things. There's no one route to this, like there's no blueprint, right? There's no handbook to it, because yes, we can duplicate how people succeed, but we won't get there the exact same way those successful people did, right? You have to go through your own journey. And it's going back to the relationships and the connections. Everyone receives things differently. And the way I see it is, we ourselves are never going to be in the exact same spot as any of us. We're not going to see the exact same thing as I see, because you, in the exact same time, the exact same space, you're not going to see what I see, right? Because time is always, it's constant, it's moving.
Yeah, it's collapsing.
Yeah. So if I stand here in a spot and you stand there, you're not going to see what I see. It's not the same place, it's not the same time. It's different. It changes. So it's just about understanding that, okay, potentially this could happen. Potentially there's this path. A lot of it is just potential, but it's all in the doing, right? We might have all this knowledge and stuff, but without the doing, we're doing nothing, right? But
putting things into practice.
Exactly, put it into practice.
There's so much you can learn, but if you don't put it into practice, then it's just a waste,
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, guys, you guys are blowing my mind. Like, whoa.
What do you mean, man? Just started this conversation, bro.
Wow. It's just so much value just added onto me. Just talking, you mentioned habit. For some reason, this came into my mind. The more you do it, the more it turns into a habit. So I can't remember who said it, but apparently it's a Chinese proverb. So when you do it once, it's a mistake, but if you do it twice, it's a habit. And sometimes a habit can actually be both good and bad, meaning you're putting yourself in danger by not following through what it is you say. So you tell yourself you want to do, but also if you put yourself in a field where, like, I want to do this every day, like I want to exercise, for instance, you wake up early, you drink water the first thing in the morning, you have a good healthy breakfast, and you do that repetitively, that's a good habit. There's also like bad habit and good habit. So thank you, bro. That was like a good value just placed onto me.
No, we're all adding value here, man. The way I see it, we all have value to give. We all have value to share. All of us do. Like, it's through our stories. That's one of the biggest things we can place value on people, right? So if I share my story to you, you might see it's valuable, but then to someone else, it's going to be not valuable, right? It's just going to be just another story. It's just about sharing what we have, and hopefully one day we can connect with someone, right?
Sorry to cut you off there. I actually like to look at it this way. If right now we're both listening to a story, Gerald catches, the value in it, and I don't, let it down the track, whatever that you said, because I listen to what it is you're saying, it comes back down to me as value. And that that comes down with experience, maybe, because right now I'm not going to what it is that you're talking to me about, or you're telling both of us about. But the fact, and everybody that's watching, you're like, I'm not catching on what it is you're saying because I haven't gone through what it is you went through just yet. But this one day I went through what it is that, you were talking about. Now, because you told me earlier and I never went through it, now I'm going through it. It's like, now I know what he's talking about. It's like that haha moment. And how often do we have that, right?
It hits differently. Until you just remember that one thing that this one person says, oh, now I know what you're talking about.
Now I understand. Oh, God.
Yeah. So you never know when it might be valuable to you. Yeah. 100%. That's great.
You never know.
Appreciate you guys, honestly.
I appreciate you,
man. Like, we know you have so many stories, and I know you have a lot to say as well. But I know you have a lot to say, so I'm trying to kind of just like, hey, let's get back on track, bro, because I know you can like go into different.
I appreciate it. That's what I
said. Your mind is vast.
It's a very vast mind, right? And that's what I love about it. Like, you can have so many different conversations, right? I think one topic I really want to focus on and dig deep in is relationships, because that's not really something we've talked about a lot in our podcast, right? So, I'm just in a relationship now, just very, very new. Joe's married, and you're in a relationship, you have a son. Like, what's that like? How did it change when you were with your partner and all of a sudden now you have a son?
Well, it's not easy, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy, but being in it, how much do I really know compared to what it is I should know.
Why do you feel like you should know something?
Because, well, look at it this way. Sometimes, like, you think you're a great soccer player, but then when you go up against other players who's been playing for longer terms than you have, you're just like, oh crap, I'm terrible at this.
You know, humbling yourself.
Yes. So putting myself in that position where it's like, oh well, I didn't know I had to go through this. I didn't know how to do that. But being in a relationship, it's like I'm not in a relationship with myself anymore. So I should put my family first. But before I do that, I had to find myself. Now, it's hard because I make it hard. Sometimes, like, you know, when there's like small things going through my head, I put it against them. But then when that happens to my partner, I take it differently, you know, and I'm just like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. But it's too late because just sorry doesn't really help, does it?
Yeah.
So being where I'm at, I would say I outgrew myself, but I don't know what number I'm going to use right now, but I'm going to say over 50 years. I outgrew myself over 50 years, having a child, having the life that I have right now, even though I should have known better, because I predicted myself to know better, which was a problem. I cursed myself, which kind of like derailed me from actually learning those things earlier, right? So I thought I knew what it is I want. But again, like talking about relationships, I'm going to relate this back to my father. So I put myself like, you know, I'm 50 years advanced in knowing how to raise a child, because I thought, you know, it's easy because I was a child then, putting myself in the position I was at. If I was a dad, what would I do? You know, if I was a dad, what would I do? Man, that just kept playing on the daily basis, in and out, and it never left me. But now having it, those thoughts actually help shape me for who I am right now. You know, I can actually in some way place value on my son without knowing it. And the reason how I know I'm placing value is when he comes up to me, he just gives me a random hug. Like, you know? But like being where I'm at and having a child, man, you have so much responsibility. What you reflect goes back onto him. What others reflect comes back onto him. If you can't do what's the right thing, which is you not reacting but actually responding, you're gonna push your child further and further back. So, having to allow them to learn on their own is probably one way to go. But having to also try to be there to correct them. Not so much as I know more than you, but hey, look, we all make mistakes. Maybe you can try it this way. It might be different to how you did it too. That's the only reason why you're trying to teach them that lesson. So it's not easy. But how would you respond to this? Sorry,
to having,
you know, like
if I was to have a child,
you being in a relationship right now, actually being married, bro, like.
Well, to be honest, like if I was to compare being married to having a child, I think having a child is like a bigger learning experience for sure, because I always hear about having a child completely changing your life, and that's an understatement. But yeah, it's just, well, because the question what I was thinking when you're talking is, how did you prepare yourself for like going through all that?
Okay, I love this one.
Yeah,
the 9 months. I have to laugh because there's so much that goes on within the 9 months. So you'd be like let's per se, you'll be working and then your partner's pregnant. She'll be probably working as well. So she has to take time off work. So now there's only one income coming in. But then the bigger part is you have to prepare for someone. That's going to be like a miniature you. I always talk about Jasper. You know, you have to prepare for like something great about to happen. How would you actually prepare for it? So I had 9 months for it. I had a terrible habit up until that point. Up until I met my partner, and I'm not going to say she kind of revolutionized the way I live right now, if I was to be honest. Just being in the position she was in, I didn't know how she felt, so most of the time I felt guilty for what it is I was doing, or what it is I've done. I didn't want all of that to catch up with her. So I had to kind of like establish all that, you know, like all the horrors, all the traumas, all the things that I went through that could come back onto her. So that wasn't easy, you know. It's like having to clear your history. That's not easy, man. So next step was just having to like set a small boundaries between who I associate with and who I don't associate with. That again wasn't easy because I surrounded myself with friends who I guess I can't put it into words, but I think you have an idea, right?
Yeah.
So it's like having all these boundaries set in place. How can I actually put myself in a position where I can say that I'm a father, this is my son, this is my partner, soon to be wife. I just want to make that clear. Soon to be wife, but how can I make this clear to her that I see her for who she is? I don't want her to change to be somebody else. I don't want to change myself to be somebody else. You know, and, lose ourselves in that process. So I looked at it as, all right, so the first thing is what people always talk about, what are you going to name your child, right? So that was like a way where we could bond as well. That's the way where we can bring our conversations back together as one. Just having the small talks, because, you know, you have your moments where you make her mad, she makes you mad.
She doesn't make you mad, bro.
It's always you.
It doesn't make you mad, bro. It makes you wet.
But yeah. So it's like, you know, that 9 month really like helped boost it, you know, what it is that we have now. But even after the 9 month was over, because I was getting myself used to that routine, that habit, I wasn't there yet, but I kind of had to look at it as this is urgent. You know, this is like a whole human being. This is somebody that is gonna look up to me. This is like someone that I want to actually show respect to, that can respect me back, and the world can give respect to. So how can I do this in return? And I was stuck with this question for months. When he was born, I was kind of like disappointed because it was born on Tuesday. I remember this so vividly because I was asked to go back to work the following day. And this really got to me. So that's where like I felt the disconnection between me and him started, you know. But having to build that relationship with his mom kind of helped me out, because even though most times I was at work, she's at home with him. She understood what I was doing, I'm trying to do for the family, but he didn't. And he wasn't seeing me as much. So most times I come back from work, he'll be crying a lot and I didn't know what to do. But I prepared myself for it, thinking that I didn't. So most times, you know, try and just take him outside, like have a good look at the sunshine, you know, the clouds, even though it doesn't mean anything to him just yet, because he's getting used to the colors. Like taking him like that and, you know, having to feel his heartbeat, and I'm just like, getting in touch with my own emotions, and I'm just like, I wish I could quit work right now. I wish I could do something to replace this. And you know, just being in that same situation, just like, what more can I do? You know, I messed up so much in the past that I had to fix just in 9 months. But in that 9 months as well, we were actually trying to care for him. Now he's here. I guess when he arrived, that's when it mattered the most. And he's here and he's healthy, and I'm just grateful, man. Because we were preparing for him, right? The 9 months, the whole time, we're trying to like establish that relationship, you know, work on what it is that we can provide him, what it is that he can do, who he's gonna be, what he's gonna wear, this and that. You know, all those little small talks come into one, and it really makes sense once you figure it out. So I can't describe what it is I felt, but it's amazing. It does change you. I'm not gonna lie. It does change you.
It's crazy, man. Like I don't know, just having to learn all that within the 9 months, and like to like instantly like be hit. Okay, I was like, oh, my whole life is gonna change in 9 months. I gotta put my foot down and just figure everything out, like push all that aside. That takes a crazy amount of courage to do, and to be able to do that, you know.
It
and
does.
like I listen to like how you like interact with your son, and that's like really nice, because like that's something I guess I wish I had with my own dad as well. Like, you know, having that connection. So it's like, it's a beautiful thing to hear that you're having that. How did you with your own son, like how did you know to be like that with him? Is it through like your own experiences, or did you read in a book, or did you learn from other people?
Actually, that was through my own reflections. It's like, it's weird. So they say, you know, the baby actually looks like the mom but he has a dad's face. I see myself in him a lot, man. Like I just see myself, and he looks at me, and I'm just like, stop looking at me. But you know, it's like, so this is what I was doing before you came into the world, and I don't want, like, it's not that I don't want him to experience it, but if I can direct him away from what it is that I went through, because, you know, I really broke down, like I was really broken. And, you know, like I said, his mom really helped me shape myself again. And I'm not going to say the same for him. I'm not going to say a woman's going to help shape you. But when you finally give up, when we were talking about sufferings earlier, when you finally give up on what it is that's putting you down the most, and you're really ready to actually succeed and actually thrive and actually achieve in what it is that you want in life, that fulfillment is going to bring the joy out of you. And that's what it was that I saw out of his own eyes. And like, there's many more words I can use to describe it, but at the moment, fulfillment is what it is that I want him to have. So I never had it, and I felt like I never had it because of, you know, so and so and so, this and that and this. But now that he's here, what can I do for him? I just, my own reflection, you know, just reflected back a message that I saw could be better, you know, and I'm not so much trying to live his life for him. I want him to live it on his own. I just want to direct him just a smidge bit, you know, and I just want him to be happy, man. And that's it. Just want him to be happy.
That's beautiful, man. You're a good dad, man. Yeah. I can already tell.
I appreciate it.
Man, you get me emotional, man. Like, oh, dad, so loving. Like, you know, that's.
I see Gerald Jr. coming along.
So I found listening.
But you know, you just think about that, right? For those who want to have a family, they just want, I want to have a kid and stuff, but you can't really prepare for it until it happens, right? Like, I think what gets me emotional, how you were talking about, you just want to see them happy, and when they come into the world, it's like it changes you because you create this life, you know, with you and your partner, and it's just seems like the most beautiful thing, right? And I had a question that I wanted to ask, like, how do you know that you are the right person to be able to be a dad for your son?
That's a tough one, honestly, because I would say you won't know, you don't know.
Well, I guess to rephrase it, what kind of dad do you want to be to your son?
In short, probably the dad I never had. Also, a better dad than I did have. It's not going to be easy, but as long as we're both in this together, me and both my son, or if I was to say a few years from now, I also have a daughter or another son, I want them to see me as a role model. Someone that actually, you know, changed their life, someone that actually gave them something to look forward to. Because I felt like I never had that. And if I can give it to somebody else of my own blood, why not? Definitely. So, man, you guys are getting me emotional about all this. But
you get me emotional, man.
It's really something to look forward to. But describing it in words, it's gonna take you a long time because so many things can be said, but it won't really, you know, make sense to who's listening to it. So until you go through it yourself, it will just like, it will literally grab your heart like as if a bear is hugging it, like, I don't want to let go, no. It's a special feeling. Yeah. It's a special feeling.
Powerful, man. Powerful stuff.
Powerful. I guess I asked about that because, you know, even we've all had our phase of just having fun and enjoying it, right? But you'll grow out of it eventually. And I guess that's where I'm at right now, is that I want to look towards that future now. It's not removing all the fun. It's just thinking about like that, having a family, right? What's it like how do I know if I'm ready? How can I know if I'm going to be the best father to this being that's going to come into the world? How do I even know if I'm the best partner for my partner, right? there's like so much, I guess, anxiety around that to think about as well.
I think with communication, you both can talk yourselves out of that anxiety feeling, because being in the future doesn't really help, does it? And being in the past doesn't really help either. So if you can somehow establish the past and also set the future in between, you guys are gonna be just flowing through. But what you said, like you don't want to forget about the fun that you've had. What about if you can create more fun? Just because this
wink
just because this being is here now, you can actually show them around the world something that you yourself probably wanted to do for a long time.
Sure.
So it's like being in that, like that flow. Just it's here.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
right?
let's do it.
I think that's where I kind of get stuck in. I get stuck in the future, and my partner is always reminding me, like, just come back. Like, I need to be a big present here, because I'm just like thinking, like, how can I do this? How can I provide the best life? How can I build these things for? How can I provide those things? And then whenever communication, like,
I think you're scared, because that's what I was too.
I think I am scared.
I feel like I still am.
Yeah,
because that's what the feeling is.
I'm in that same situation, because that's what I was like, I so relate to that, because when you mention about like being in the past, I'm very like future oriented, like everything. But because of that, I have that anxious like feeling of, oh man, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And how do you stay in the present? Like, how do you like focus on having that flow that you talk about? How do you do that?
Well, obviously for me, I'm very future driven, like you are. I guess that's how we were in business, right? Because we're very future driven. But I'm grateful and so blessed to have a partner who grounds me when I'm in that state. And I'm there for her when she's stuck in the present. I guess for us, it's anxiety. For her, it's trauma. But then sometimes it switches, right? Sometimes I'll have a bit of trauma, but then she'll have a bit of anxiety. But it's about being there for each other, and then, knowing how you could be the supportive person to each other, right? The way I always explain it to anyone is that relationship we have is we're playing doubles tennis. We're in this together. We're on the same court. We're on the same side. And it's sometimes I'll hit the ball. Sometimes you back me up. Sometimes I'll back you up. If you miss those shots, it's just being there for each other, right? And that's what she does for me, is she brings me back. She grounds me. She's like, hey, let's be here with me right now. I get it. You want to be there. And then it's like, oh, I want this. And then you realize the word you're saying is I. And it's like, and she says, like, we can do this together. We're the same team. We're going to figure it out, like we said, right? So it's just reminding each other of that, and remembering, like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to put that much stress. But obviously, I guess for us, we're men. We want to be able to provide that for our partners, right? We want to be able to give them the best life. And sometimes we forget that we're on the same team, that we can work together, right? As opposed to us shouldering everything. I think that's kind of where the paradigm shift now is in society these days, is slowly going to that realization that we can work together, that the man doesn't have to do everything, right? And sometimes, my partner, yes, she's she's progressed way further in her career, and she's, earning a lot more money than I am. And sometimes that hurts your ego, right? It's like, oh man, I gotta be the breadwinner. I'm the man of the house, right? But it's just reminding yourself, like, man, removing that ego and just realizing that just because we're on the same path to the future, our individual paths don't have to be the same. Like I was telling her, yes, I want to see you progress in your career. I want to see you progress. I'm so happy for you. Like when you get your promotions and stuff like that. And I'm so proud of her, how much she works hard and everything she does. Oh, fuck, I'm getting emotional. But, just thinking about it. But I just had to remind myself, like, for me, my goal is to be
a business owner, right? To create my own things, to create our own things, right? As a team. So it's gonna be different. It's gonna be a different journey. So I have to, and she reminds me, like, you know, you're doing so good. Like, I'm proud of everything you've done. You're successful. But, you know, our brand, yes, we have created success, but it's not where we imagine we could be. We want to be further. We want to create more results. But I guess for us, it's about keeping at it and continuing on the process of building and creating things and just adding value where we can, right? So it's, like, just being reminded, especially with your partner, and talking it through and really working together. Like, she even told me, like, I'm sorry for talking about my partner so much.
I appreciate it.
She was like saying, like, oh, if we need to create like finances together, if we need to start budgeting together, if we need to start doing this together, like everything together, it's just like, wow, I've never experienced that before, right? And it's I find so much gratitude in that, because I realize, like, we are a team. Like, you're not alone in that partnership. It's you know what? I'm only realizing this right now in this moment. Her success is your success, and your success is her success. 100%. Right? Like, I'm only realizing that really now. Like, it makes sense. Who cares if whoever's the breadwinner, right? Like, it's going to the same pot, right? You're working towards the same thing. Wow, I just had that realization in that moment. Crazy.
It's amazing.
But yeah,
like thinking about my own relationship. Like,
I love it.
but like, talking about being a team, and because like, as guys, we're always like, we got to figure this thing out, and you know, a lot of the time I'm stressing about it, and sometimes emotion takes over me. Like, oh, I get frustrated, whatever, and you know, sometimes she just goes, you know, you can just ask me for help. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to you. Baby. Like, you know, it's like, no, but like, we're a team, and that's the thing. Like, when you get with your partner, you're not, you know, serving just yourself, and like, you know, you're not, as much as you want to do as provide as much as you can and make sure that, like, they live the best life, and like, you're a team, and you guys help each other in any way possible. Like, for sure, man. I totally relate with what you're saying.
When we work together, we all win.
In the end, we win, man. Right?
It makes things so much more easier.
It's so much easier.
But isn't it funny though, the ego that we build when they're like, I can help you, you're like, you know, it's like, you try to push them away because, oh, I'm a man, you know, I can do this, I don't need your help. Then you go to your boys and it's like, hey man, I need something. But like, to be serious with it, I reckon it's just the attention that you actually give them. Because when you look at it, just being present with that person and not putting yourself too far ahead, but just like having a small goals, like maybe tomorrow we're going to do this. And in the past, it's like, oh, so what did you do yesterday? You know, just small things like that. And it hasn't been easy for me, but I'm working towards it. But like having just like small foundations like that, paying attention, being present, like right now in this room, man, I feel so alive because the energy I'm getting from both of you guys. I feel like a halo is trying to drop down my head. But you know, it's like just having that small like interaction with your partner, and my case and my son as well. It's like, whoa, I really love this, you know? And I feel like the only thing that breaks it off is, I know I don't want to say this because most people might actually love what they do, but I'd rather spend time with my family, but you know, help other families do the same thing as me, rather than have to be at work and you know, miss out on what it is they really like doing. So it's like, that's where I feel like the breakup is, and how I try like form that back into shape again is by trying to relapse what it is I missed out on. So after work, it's like, oh, so what you guys could do today? What you guys buy? Did you guys go to the shop? Did you go to the park? That's what I said, my little man, you hear, no, my daddy, let's go park. So it's like being present just gives you so much, you know, that realism. It's like, this is where I'm at. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're doing right now. You know, so being present really helps you shape yourself and the other person that you're with.
I think it's also like, it's all about that ego perspective. Because my mate as well, he says, like, man, like I love talking to you because you understand the way I see relationships. Because with him, his friend group, the way he does his relationship is like similar to us. Like we're very loving, we're very caring, we see each other as a team. Well, he's always getting crap from his friends. He's like, oh, what, you gonna treat your girl like this, like make them want you all the time and like ignore them, you know, like they're always on the chase and you gotta like act like a dickhead, right? I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. It's a lot of that society is, well, from his group, is that ego. You have to have high masculinity, and it goes back to that theory of the Superman and Clark Kent, right? Everyone wants the Superman, a strong, powerful, confident guy. But in reality, people want the Clark Kent, but they're too like they don't want people to see Clark Kent, right? They will, because Clark Kent, what, he's the humble, quiet, introverted guy. He's very nice, very kind, and very gentle. In reality, all women want that. But the thing is, you can be both. Just like Superman. He's both Superman, he's both Clark Kent. It's just being in that situation, knowing when it's necessary.
Would you describe that as being feminine and masculinity?
Feminine masculinity.
In some sense.
In some sense, I think it's understanding the female needs.
Yes.
Right? Because I explained this to my mate, and he was like saying, yeah, like, you know, I can be Superman in the bedroom, you know, like confident, powerful. But then when you're out with your friends, you can just be that Clark Kent, a very gentle, loving person, right? And that's what we all try. That's what we want to be for our partners, right? That person that they really love. And it's all fun, like that confident, that strong, that guy that just like, it's just so powerful, right? We don't want to be a guy that's just like control me. No, it's about understanding when the situation is needed, right?
Sorry, guys. I think a great example, because you were talking about being in the bedroom, and Quagmire came in mind.
Why did Quagmire come
But like, he actually kind of displays the attitude as well. You know, if you guys watch Family Guy and all, like that's where actually I developed a lot of my English from as well. You know, Simpsons, Family Guy, what was the other one? South Park. There was a lot of swearing in that side. So yeah, Quagmire, like, he resembles a lot of you know, good attributes. If you actually look at what it is he actually developed over time, I think he was a pilot himself as well. There was a few things he did on the side. He's 60 years old and look how good he looks. Why? Because he has that positive attitude.
It's that chin, bro.
Yeah. hey, don't you start on me. But yeah, so sorry, go on. So just like having to split the two difference, you know, being the humble you and being the, hey, look, you know, this, I can do this on mine. I don't need your help. Like, how can you combine those two together?
Well, it's, as I said before, it's knowing your partner's needs, right? It's knowing when a certain situation requires you to be that confident, that man that just overtakes, like powerful, and, you know, overpowers them, right? And then there's that time when you need to be that gentle person to be that ear for them, right? Because when my mate was telling me, he was like saying, oh yeah, like they always treat their, like, even when their groups, like, oh, like they treat him like crap, you know, they push their women away, and then they're like always like laugh at him because he's so loving and so caring. And I'm just like, you know, well, that's the misunderstanding of that masculinity, that ego, that I always have to be this person. I have to look, the way he put it is, you do it for the boys, you know, you look, it makes you look like you're the stronger guy in front of the boys, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm the head of the partnership, like I control this person that's under me. But it's just like, for me personally, it's just like, why would you treat your partner, the person you love, like that? Why would you treat them like crap, right? And I guess going back to your question, how do you find that harmony in being the Superman and the Clark Kent? Well, obviously, as I said, all relationships are different, and we've had this conversation. Like, I can only speak from my experiences, and I'm not going to say these experiences are going to help you, but I can only share what I've done, and it's up to you to take it or not, right? And I guess, yeah, for me, it's when in those times of those discussions when you're having a discussion of something's happened, right? And it's just being thankful of not being so reactive. Like, thank you for not lashing out on me when I did this or I did that. It's understanding that this person is still a human being and they're not perfect, right? And it goes back to understanding your emotions and being responsive as opposed to reactive. And as I said, it's a lot of practice and it takes a lot of patience, especially if you're not that person who is patient. It's a lot harder, right? And this is what I told my mate, like, man, one thing about you're not patient enough. You gotta be patient with your partner, right? And sometimes one person might put a lot more effort than the other. But then if it gets to a point when you feel like you're putting so much more effort than the other person, that's when you need to communicate that. That's why communication is so necessary. And this is, I guess, one way that can potentially prevent those things from happening is, I told him, like, have you had a sit down with your partner and had a discussion? What are your values? What are you guys' boundaries? What's the purpose of the relationship, right? And I believe that's necessary because it adds that structure in relationship, right? And some might like question, like, oh, why are you guys doing that? Or why don't you just go by the flow, right? Well, if you're going with the flow, there's no, you're not stable. There's no stability. You're just water just flowing through everything. You're not a rock. You're letting everything just happen as opposed to sometimes standing your ground.
Being solid,
right? Because as much as we have this idea of being free, innately we need structure in our lives. That's why if we have a lawless world, I'm getting a bit philosophical now, but there's no structure. There's no, like, I guess there's no alignment. There's no purpose if you think about it. I forgot how, I think it was Jordan Peterson who was talking about it. Without laws, there's no structure. And without the structure, we have no purpose. We don't have a goal. We don't have anything for us to give us any guidance for, right? That's why things with structures yields results.
Yes,
right?
it does.
That's why it's so necessary.
Definitely.
And it's building those foundations, right? Foundations is so important. Without the foundation of a building, it's going to collapse, right? If you, like in the Bible, you build a church on sand, there's no foundation there. It's just going to slide away. You use a rock. You build your church on a rock, it's solid. There's foundation, it's strong. But it's about building and finding that foundation for your own relationships. That's where it begins. But as I said, I am just speaking from experience and what I've learned from other people who've had successful relationships, like relationships that have lasted decades. So it's just sharing those experiences and learning from them, and then utilizing them in our own way, like as Bruce Lee said, like take what you can and then discard what you don't need and make it your own, right? Paraphrasing the quote, obviously that's not exactly how it was, but just intaking information and then putting it to the test, testing and experimenting, failing, and then finding success where it works. And obviously it's going to adjust. Like I mentioned this book before, Adam Grant, Think Again. Sometimes it works, but how do you change that? You reframe, you adjust, you got to change how you think. Just because, yes, it works, can we make it better? Potentially, but how do you make it better? You got to ask those questions. How can we make it? Where are we going wrong? What can we improve on? It's a whole process. But as I said, I'm not a freaking professional. I am just a dude that's deeply in love and wants to have to be the best partner he can be. And I'm just sharing my experiences as well, right? And you guys, like, you've been in relationships way longer than I have. Like, how have you guys made your relationships work till now?
Well, our relationship is actually not as old as people might think. But I 100% agree with you. Having that communication and building up those that structure, like you said, because a lot of the times the other person might not even know where you want to go. Because a lot of the times when you begin a relationship, you already have this kind of thought of, okay, this is where I'm going to be in the future. This is what we're going to do. Like I'm saying we, but I haven't even taken her thing into consideration. Oh, I'm going to be here, and then I'm going to be here. This is my job here. And then, but if you don't have that communication, you're going to realize, oh wait, hold on, that's not what she wants. Like how we have to come together and figure out, okay, this is where we want to go, and have that communication and build those foundations and have that like North Star type of like, you know, like we can always go back to this is what we talked about. This is our values. And, you know, we're going to go back to this if ever we have some sort of disagreement. Oh, babe, did you know, remember we talked about this, you know, we wanted to go this direction. And the one thing that I guess I was going to ask during that thing was, how often should that discussion come up? Because I guess it's a thing that will change from time to time. And I guess you just always have to continuously have that open communication with them.
Well, sorry. I reckon it should be on a regular basis. So it could be either early in the morning before the day starts or after the day. Because remember, you know, circumstances change throughout the day, because maybe in the morning you guys had a good time, but when you went to work or you went to work, someone gave you a hard time. So you come home, instead of you know, just humbling yourself, saying this is who I say I want to be with, this is who's gonna make me happy, this is who can make me happy, this is who I can make me happy. You tend to actually throw off your attitude onto this person rather than having to let go of what it is you went through, which is you having a decision. You came home, you can either discuss it, communicate, talk over it, or you can just let go of it, come back in and just make everything, you know, flow through properly. So just having a balance in between those two, because you cannot have a balance between work and life. You can only have one, right? I can't come to that conclusion right now, but I think you both know. So, sorry, I'm going to allude a little bit more. You mentioned communication, and, you know, like, how did you guys have that foundation between your relationships and make it last until now? For me, I would say just the last 3 years that's gone by. One thing that never left me, that me and her would talk over, but we wouldn't really like title it, which is communication, trust, be you, and be professional. Now, those are words that came out of her mouth. I just picked it up and I was just like, that's what it is I actually want to be. That's actually what I want to do. Now, the fact that she said it out loud, I wrote it down and it never left me, because when you communicate, you let both the fears, the doubts, you know, both the positive, the, you know, the negative, just all out at once. Now, you guys just like went over that, everything's sorted. Now, when you guys are going to trust, like, you know, maybe they're going to come and tell you something bad, you know, how are you going to handle that? Do you trust this person well enough for them to tell you? Either could be like a secret from, you know, like maybe let's say her friends were telling her something, but she doesn't want to share because it's bothering her. So she needs to share with somebody she trusts so much, which is you. Now, are you able to keep that secret between you and her? Or are you going to pass that on to what her friends told her? Now, that could be a conflict, right? So having that little trust, like mutual trust, that can actually like sustain something for the long run. But again, that's not what it is I'm saying. Obviously, you and your partner talk about what it is her friends tell you. She's not going to tell you, you know, that's what they talk about. And then just being you, it's just like, who are you? Who do you say you are to your partner? Who do you say you are to your friends? Who do you say you are to the world? You know, you got to be that person. Sometimes the world can actually reflect off you, and sometimes the world can reflect through you. So if you reflect off the world, most times you'll make mistakes, but if the world reflects off you, sometimes you actually do good in between. And then being professional, man, professionalism is one thing that we all want to be, right? So that's one thing I've been working on, and I can't say I've improved in any ways, but I would say in communication wise, that in smidge has twisted a little bit. And, you know, I'm finding my voice in who I am. So, yeah, just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up, boys.
For sure, man.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. You know, people could learn from our experiences, potentially, right? That's why we share our stories. Obviously, we don't share everything, right? But we only share what we've feel as comfortable. But going back to Gerald's question about how often do you have that conversation? Well, it depends in what context of that conversation. Are you talking about the deep discussion, or is it?
I guess that deep discussion. Yeah.
Well, sometimes I guess, I haven't been in my relationship long, but we have a lot of deep discussions. We have a lot of times where we just talk a lot. We just spend quality time together. And sometimes it's just like thinking of the future and thinking, we're just dream building, right?
Mm.
And sometimes through the events of things happening, you add on to the values. Just through those experiences. We were like, because of this event, we realized, okay, this needs to be in our values now. So we added on. And then when we had that deep discussion early on, it was pretty early on, maybe a couple of weeks in, about like our values and stuff like that. I think it's necessary. It's good to have it as often and as regular as possible, but it's just something you have to set aside, right? Like a good idea is like a business structure, I would say, is a pretty good idea. What we have our quarterly OKRs, right? That's pretty similar to a relationship. Hey, where's this relationship going? Or how is our relationship doing right now? What can we improve on? Where do we want to go?
Being accountable, yeah.
Yeah, being accountable. It's not like we have a weekly accountability, right, to each other. It's what we choose, what we want to do. Like for me, one thing I tell her is, I want to earn her love every day, because every day is new, right? Yes, I may have earned your love yesterday, but it doesn't give me the right to just be like, hey, because I did this for you yesterday, I can do this. Every day is new. Isn't that what it means to be in the present moment? Why are you looking back on the past, what you did before? It's like what people have done in their life when they're so accomplished in what they've done before. They always look back on the past. All right, cool, man. Like, that's a great story. What's next? What's the future? Where are you going? Right? That's the conversations we care about. Even with our relationship, it's, all right, what's next? We reflect on what's happened, but then we look forward to the future, right? Like that saying I say is, look back on the past and then look forward for the future, but always remain and embrace the present moment. And it's just, how can you renew that every day? How can you earn that love every day, right? How can you show that love? And if something happens, maybe potentially you could be like, hey, I think we need to have a conversation and just reflect. Let's review. Where have I, not been a loving partner? Where can I improve? Or sometimes it could be just reviewing your love language again. Or maybe has my love language changed? And sometimes it does. Sometimes something goes more and then something goes less. And it's through those experiences you learn, okay, maybe this is how I can be more loving. Right? So it's, I guess, that's a good guideline. A quarterly, hey, can we have a sit down and just like talk about our relationship? Right? This sounds like a relationship counselor. But as I said before, we only talk from our experiences, what we believe could potentially help people's relationships, right? It's not like we know everything. We're not going to be like, hey, if you do this, you're going to have a healthy relationship. No, it's just being, hey, from what I've experienced, what we've experienced, this has worked so far. And sometimes that might adjust. We could have this conversation 2 months from now, a year from now, and things can potentially change, right?
Definitely.
It's just like adapting, adjusting, and then you just keep pushing forward. What's your North Star? Are we getting closer to our North Star? No. Did we change courses potentially? Or how do we get back on track? And it's just, and even it could be just spending time together and just through the conversations, it just happens, right? Like one thing I noticed with my partner, I haven't been on Netflix as much as I used to be. And even when we're together, like the TV is like hardly ever on. We're just talking. We're just discussing stuff. or we're just doing stuff, right?
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, like, you know, playing games, washing the dishes, you know, snuggling in bed, spending time together, right? I'm a Christian man. Hey, don't judge me, man. No, none of that before marriage. How dare you? Don't look at me like that. See, I don't have a kid, right? But that's what I'm saying. It's when we say be present, and I have to do this too. It's a reminder from me. Like, be present. Like, where are you right now? Who's in front of you? Right? Who are you with? Like, I'm with the boys right now. And I appreciate you. Like, I love spending time with you guys. I love hearing your stories and your perspectives on life. It's just coming back to that when you're with your partner. Like, you know, how can you make those moments last? And imagine if this was your last moment, like, is it going to be a moment to remember? Is it going to be a moment you're going to be happy with? If something happens to you, are you going to be happy the way you left it? Right? It's removing that ego again. We always want to be right. We always want to be the person that is correct. But sometimes we just have to hold our tongue and just let it happen. Right? Letting go. Letting the ego go. We can't always be right. We can't always be the hero, right? Sometimes we have to be the villain. Sometimes we do something that they can experience to be the hero. Right?
I think most times we are the villain.
Who knows? That's up to you to decide. Or is that by you becoming the villain that you become the hero?
That's what
reverse, you know. But yeah, I guess we're just gonna get into a loop here now. Like, but then we could be like this and like that. But
he knows me too well.
I know you too well, man. I'm just gonna get you back on track, pull you out of that loop, and, you know, come back here. But yeah, like, what do you think? What do you guys think about that question? Like, how often do you think you would be a good amount to have this conversation? Like, do you ever have this conversation, right?
Yeah, I guess the reason why I asked that question is because when I noticed that when I'm having like a conversation with like Yuka, those values change when certain circumstances happen. So we'll, like, something, you know, I don't know, something to do with, I don't know, my own health or something like that. And I'll be like, okay, it's changed a little bit. We're gonna have to have this discussion. You know, what do we do now? What's the next step? And I guess, do you kind of wait for something to happen, or do you just have that initial conversation like a much more earlier than that?
That's a good question.
That's urgency, right? It comes down to urgency, because most times you don't really, like, you know, address the elephant in the room until it's grown a little bigger than it should have. So I would say it really depends on where you are. Like you said, depending on the circumstances, right? Most times you don't know that this is what's happening. So either the other person sees it and actually gives you a little bit of a tip. It's like, hey, look, I noticed this is happening a lot. Maybe we should talk over it. Or maybe you notice yourself, it's like, this person is kind of acting different when, you know, I bring this certain topic up. Maybe I should speak differently, you know? So that could be something you could address at an earlier stage, or it could be something that you have to wait for. But most times when you wait, you don't know. It's a massive amount of things to deal with. So it's hard to deal with, but if I was to say, I would say you should probably try to deal with it on a daily basis. So if it's a weekly, monthly type of thing, I would say deal with it. You have to deal with it. Both of you guys come as one, you know, just unite, just bring everything out at once and have an understanding, you know, just having that respect for one another and just be like, okay, look, I understand where you are. I know you understand where I'm at. What can we do together to improve both where we are at, you know?
Well, I think it's better to have prevention than the cure.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And obviously sometimes you can't know until it happens. But we can always do our best to prevent those things, like eating healthier, exercising, or having those communications, those conversations before they happen. Right. But then there's also the potentiality you're creating the conversations by having the conversations, right? It's about, I guess it's about finding that balance of all right, yes, we have this North Star. And, with business as well, we have the North Star. This is our goal. Then you have your sub goals, your sub tasks. How do we get there? Let's say your North Star is, I want to have a family. I want to live a long life. What do you have to do to live a long life?
All right, I reckon I got a question for both of you.
Okay, just before that, so unfortunately we had a rookie mistake and our SD card got full. So we missed a big chunk of content. So, but it's getting late, so we'll try to close this out soon. But yes, Richard said he had a question for us. What is your question?
Well, the whole topic tonight was actually a relationship, right? So, being in that topic, it just made me question. In my reflections, I realized how we became friends. Now, I want to know about you two. How did you two become friends? And how have you guys actually sustained this long relationship between one another? And it kind of aligns with everything else, right? Because if you can maintain a relationship with one specific person, you can also do the same with various of other people. So how have you guys maintained that? And how do you think you guys can also inflict the same thing to others? Meaning you can make friends with everybody that comes across your path.
Good question.
Good question.
Do you want to?
Sure, I'll go do this. Like we've known each other since like childhood, pretty much. We were in the same church, grew up in the same church, and we hang out with. I only got like close to you and the boys pretty recent, like 2018, I'd say. That's when I started getting close to the boys because I was still a young kid. Like I wasn't, hanging out with them. And then as I got older, obviously I was able to get closer with them. And I guess how we built that relationship was initially through the difficult times. We were able to find support in each other. But I want to go back to a discussion I had with my partner, and we were discussing about friendships as well. And looking back on our friendship groups now, and for me, my friendship group now is very small. I have a small circle that I know I can trust and really call truly like family and friends. But one thing she was asking me is, and she realized, she said that I noticed that majority of friendships are formed through trauma, right? And I was like, yeah, wow, a lot of my friendships before were formed through trauma. We built that. We were vulnerable with each other. We built a strong relationship through that. But it's not sustainable. It's very, it's very toxic.
It's like you're limited to a degree.
Yes, you're limited to a degree. By saying that, we built and grew that relationship through the trauma. Right? But what allowed us to have a stronger relationship and to be where it is now, which I believe is necessary for relationships to grow, is we started to look at the future. We started to look more than the trauma itself. The discussions stopped becoming supported from our personal struggles and sorrows and challenges in life, and they became, where are we going? What are we going to do with our life? What do we want to achieve? You see the difference? When you get stuck in a relationship where it's just constantly talking about our traumas, our vulnerabilities, that's when it becomes so toxic.
It becomes a part of you.
Exactly.
Yes.
It becomes your identity. And that's what your relationship is all built on. That trauma. And when you start talking about something else, it feels weird, right? Have you ever had that feeling when you had that relationship with someone and it's based on trauma, and then you have a discussion about something else? It's like, this feels uncomfortable. Why are we talking about something like our traumas and like, our sufferings, and support?
Yeah.
And I'm not taking that away from anyone, but I'm just saying this: if you live your life based on your trauma, because what is and anxieties? Because what is trauma? Trauma is the past experience. Anxiety is the future. If your identity is stuck on that trauma and you don't move past that, your whole life is going to be built upon that. And it's, if someone in that group ends up moving past that and you're still stuck there, that's gonna ruin it. That's gonna hurt you even more. So what happened with Gerald and I is, yes, we built our relationship on that trauma, but we realized we can't stay here. We can do something more. We can do something greater. And it's, when you have that relationship, you don't have to do something together. It's just realizing, oh, you want to go here. All right, how can I be that supportive friend? You want to be better. Oh, how can I be that supportive friend? And oftentimes, yeah, you will come back, right? You will come back to those times when you move back to those traumas. But it's about understanding when that happens. I go back to my values is you listen, you understand, you accept, you love, and you stay curious. You ask those questions, right? And that's helped me to reflecting on those values, to use it in almost everything in life. So you can't attach your identity to those things. That trauma, that relationship that you built on, because for something to grow and to become better, you need to change, right? That relationship needs to change, and for it to change, you yourself need to change, and the other person in that part needs to change. Yeah, I guess that's how we built a relationship, because we know we can support each other because we've been through the tough shit. But we're going somewhere else. We're looking forward to something greater.
Exactly. Yeah. It's having that moment where we like, okay, we've because when we went through that, we were able to support each other, grow that connection deeper. But then what after that? We can't just keep talking about our traumas to each other. Just like, okay, well, that's why I guess that this brand has helped us as well, because, okay, what are we going to do with this brand? Well, we know we can build something from this, help other people.
Yeah.
And, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it together. Yeah. So
that's one way to go, right?
That's one way to go. That's what we do.
One man can change the world, but two can make a lot of difference.
Many can make a difference. Right.
Starts off with one.
That's it, man. But that's a great question. I love it. It's so crazy how sometimes the conversations you have previously, they just pop out. I'm like, oh wow, like I just had this conversation. It's so crazy. Like just life and the universe just sometimes it just knows what you need. And you just have to have the open ear to listen. Like what Ponch said, you have to have the open ear to listen to what the world is trying to tell you.
The crazy thing as well is about our relationship is that we probably wouldn't be in the same because I'm much more older than him actually, so like the age difference is a big difference, and so normally you wouldn't see like this. It's like, what's that going on? But I don't know, we just had that instant connection with each other as well. So,
isn't that really that matters?
Sorry?
Just the connection. Just
yes,
isn't that
100%.
what really matters,
The age never was a thing.
Wow, I love it.
I love it. I enjoy it.
It's a pleasure to see you both in the same room.
I appreciate you, man. You coming here and sharing your story.
Amazing story. And I know you have so much more to share. I know that mine is like
no. Honestly, mine is just like shh.
Okay.
I want to listen to what they have to say.
But now people want to listen to what you have to say. They've heard us.
They're probably like, oh man, these guys again. Let's listen to Richard.
They haven't heard enough, honestly. There's so much to be revealed.
There's always more. Like the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. All right, let's take this baby into landing. Let's close this out. 3 questions. What are you grateful for? What have you realized? And what is the question you want to ask yourself or the viewers?
I'm grateful for family.
Yeah.
What have I realized is sometimes doing it alone isn't really the best choice to make.
Yes.
And one question I ask the viewers is, what are you trying to change that you've done in the past? Or what are you trying to change that you didn't do well in yesterday? Because today you're doing something, but yesterday you did something.
Yeah. I love it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. Thank you, Richard, for taking the time to join us in our podcast. Thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us. We really appreciate that, and we thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it with us and everyone who's listening. We hope that they can find value through your story and our stories, and we can only hope to do our part to bring value to the world. All right. So thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate all the support and love that you give us. And as we always say, always take care, always stay safe, and always get up. Peace.
Okiru.